Welcome to the Hawks Nest live stream show, members only, patrons only style. We got our inaugural show here in that perspective things, and haven't been able to put a lot of content out here to members only of this channel and to the patrons, but this is going to expand as we do go forward. The hope here at the Hawks Nest is to eventually be able to do a daily show, be it a half hour, an hour, but to slide into that. And I think that the pathway to naturally eventually get there for actual just normal subscribers of the channel is to start to try to kind of get this going for just you guys, the members on that. Let you guys be the first to sort of hopefully enjoy those benefits that come through. So we're going to come through, I've decided here every Thursday to begin things, somewhere between 5 to 7 o'clock. I'm going to try to shoot for 5 o'clock, but as hit today, I wasn't able to quite get in there on time today as things just got a little delayed. I've got to kind of put this together a little bit to make it sort of work in the right sort of, kind of fashion. But we are going to come through with these on a normal basis in that respect and continue to expand out from there. I want to say thank you to all of you folks out there that have been members and patrons of the channel. Many of you have been for 12, 24, 36 months at times. So it goes very, very far back in that support. I want to thank all of you for that. It's part of what's allowed me to be able to put so much into the channel and continue to have so many of these videos in the background I'm working on that will hopefully continue to get that consistent content out to you guys. Today, we're going to be taking a look at, though, as each of these shows is going to be kind of earmarking around a certain given subject or a certain given thing. And that is going to be the case today, where we're going to start to look at something that has stood out to me in this post-evaluation process of these draft picks of the Hawks. And something that just, when I initially, when I was initially, going through my evaluation and then just hearing from people that I even trusted. For instance, I had a friend by the name of D-Mac, good friend of mine that has long, talked about how much he really liked this kid, Devon Witherspoon, and how much he really thought the Seahawks should, in fact, go out and take him and be considering him as a real guy that is somebody that this guy is awesome. There's something special to him. And look, D-Mac's a guy that's a former free safety. He's won a national title, albeit it was in the 2A in college. It wasn't in the prime time era of things, but he did win it. He did play with pros that went to the NFL level. So, when he says this kind of stuff, it always does get my antenna raised up in that particular fashion. And so I wanted to kind of do a show today a little bit around a couple of the former pros and guys that talked about Devon Witherspoon and kind of react a little bit to their perspective with you guys on this in order, maybe to get a little bit of a better understanding of what we've got with Devon Witherspoon, maybe what he's up against here, just better round out our understanding of him. Megan Gock-Roger, good to see you in the chat. I hope you're doing well tonight, and it's good to see you there. William Leonard as well. So far, Spoon looks like a stud out there at OTAs. He's looking very good at OTAs. That interception that he pulled off the other day on that tip was pretty eye-opening for just the quick reactions that he has. And again, matching up to that tape where you see the ball skills, you see those reactions to be able to have a chance to make those interceptions and picks. And so it's not something that's just going to be a flash on the practice field. It's going to be something that you see going forward. And so we will be doing, it's not going to be probably a 3-4 hour show here today. We'll be probably pretty tight and light on these. But again, we're going to keep getting these pumped out real consistently to you guys. And so that this does become kind of a common theme. First one we're going to look at here is Ronde Barber. And this one's kind of a funny one for me, because Ronde Barber is a guy just inducted in the Hall of Fame here in 2023, a guy that was on that Tampa Bay Bucks team that had Warren Sapp and John Lynch and Derek Brooks, all of those guys, Hall of Famers. He now joins those ranks. Maybe someday Simeon Rice might as well. One of the legendary defenses in NFL history, a guy that when he talks football, you should listen. And he's covered Seahawks games in the past. You guys have heard him as a play-by-play guy. He's one of my favorite guys as a play-by-play guy for our Hawks, because he doesn't come in, you don't feel like with biases. He's just watching the game and letting it unfold in front of him and then telling you what he's seeing. And I do like that in how he provides that. But this is a funny one, because now we're going to listen in this first clip about how Ronde talks about, we've got two clear corners in this last draft. And this was all done before the last draft, of course, right? Not post-draft. And he's talking about Christian Gonzalez and Devon Witherspoon. And he says, okay, these are your obvious top two cornerbacks in this whole draft. And then they get into a dissertation from there about one to the other and which is the better one. Now, initially out the gate, he tells you which one he thinks is better. If we listen to him closely here, I'm going to play this clip for you guys.
This kid, Christian Gonzalez, is by far the best corner in this year's draft. He's big, he's fast, he's silky smooth, he accelerates in and out of coverage. Now,
I think that just cut off on me. Hold on, let me play that again there, folks.
This kid, Christian Gonzalez, is by far the best corner in this year's draft. He's big, he's fast, he's silky smooth, he accelerates in and out of coverage. Now,
okay, so it didn't cut off. It's actually a short clip. I forgot about that. Now, we're going to have to work some kinks out on this one, folks. So he says he's clearly the best corner. Did you guys get that? There was no wavering on him, no back and forth. Now, I'm going to play a little bit of a longer clip here with him going through some of the things and reasons on his outlook on Devon Witherspoon. He does a breakdown of Christian Gonzalez. We don't need that. Gonzalez was taken 18th or something in the first round by New England. He's fine. But what's interesting in listening to this clip is listen to what he says and how he goes down in respect to when he gets to the end of it and they start talking about which of these two corners he would rather have. But this will be a little bit of a longer clip. This is just in his little breakdown. And remember, this is a Hall of Fame cornerback looking at this player, a guy that understands the position very well for what he's viewing. So a guy that when he talks about this stuff, we should probably be, open to listening to it in that respect of things. So let me get to the next clip here I've got of him.
All right, let's move to Devon Witherspoon. I know we're going to run out of time here because, Hugh likes to talk a lot. Now, this kid might be my favorite corner that I looked at. He's at the top of the screen. Hold this right now. I'm just tell you a little bit about him. I think, personally, I'm going to say it now. I think he probably comes to the league. He's going to start inside a little bit because if he has a weakness is that he doesn't have that hip movement that Christian Gonzalez has. He's actually a little stiff. He's got a great pedal. He stays square to his target. But when he comes out of this break on this play right here, I want you to watch how choppy his transition is. It's like he has to take a second, maybe even a third step to get into this route. Now, he's instinctive as hell. He's competitive. So he knows that this ball, let this run, Steve. He knows that this ball is an inside breaking route. And so he's on top of it, right? But watch the transition. That scares me for NFL type receivers because they can absolutely stick that left foot in the ground and go and continue up the field. And the only recourse he has right here is to grab that guy. And there's a lot of film on this kid where he's grabbing. People say it's sticky coverage in college. In the NFL, that is a penalty. So I think if there's one thing he's going to have to work on, it's that. And I don't know really how you get better at that after you get into the NFL, but that's going to be him. All right, go to this next play. You're going to see the exact same thing. He's at the top of your screen. He's going to get the curl flat concept. And if he's got a good coach, I mean, we always said if there's a guy go to the flat and there's a curl and you're pedaling from 8-9 yards off, it should be an interception opportunity. That's exactly what he gets here. Go ahead and start this. But again, look how choppy his pedal is and his hips. There's no fluidity in his ability to pedal. And if he doesn't learn to get off his heels, I guess is a good way to say this, because that's what it looks like to me. He's on his heels. So he has to take a couple of gather steps to get in there. Now, again, he makes the play. His instincts shine out all the time. Every single tape you put on, his instincts are what define him. All right, so I think that he's going to be a slot guy, and let's go to the next play, Steve, and I'll show you why. This is he's down at the bottom of the screen. He's not a slot guy. He's the cover corner right here on the single receiver side. But they get a motion to empty, put him in the slot. And it's that that smash sail concept. This guy has the ability to know when these routes are coming. They play a little bit of funky type of defense sometimes. He played in the slot a lot, and it's like 9 yards off. I know in some NFL circles they call it special when you have a single hole safety, but everybody to that three receiver side is locked up. He looks like a slot guy to me because of plays like this. I don't think I've seen him get beat on this play in any of his films. He's a football player, right? Does he look great? Does he move great? No. But does he make plays all the time? Absolutely. And to prove why I love this guy specifically, go to the very next play. And if you know who this kid is, you know who Devon Witherspoon is out of Illinois, you have absolutely seen this play. It's at the bottom of your screen. This is play number 1 against Indiana. First play of the game. So obviously they kind of had an idea what was coming, and so the hell did 31 and White, because he completely eviscerates this running back. And it's not that he made the play, it's the manner in which he approached this hit. Go ahead and run this, Steve. I mean, it looks violent and awesome to me. It was a clean hit. He hit his target right in the middle of his chest, and he gets up and he knows exactly how badass this hit was, right? I love this about any defensive coordinator looking for an attitude adjustment in the secondary. They need to start with this kid. Go to the next play. And if you think that it's only, those lookout shots, this is a play against Michigan. I think it's right before it's in the third quarter. It's the top of your screen, right? It's just playing off coverage. It's a bounce run outside. I don't know how big this running back is. I didn't look him up. I think he's a freshman. But the way that he tackles this kid, go ahead and run it. Go ahead and run this. Now, Christian Gonzalez would not do this. This kid staggered feet for power and absolutely upends this dude. And for a running back to get run through by a 5'11", 181-pound corner, that's ridiculous. This guy throws his weight around more so than his lightweight around more than anybody I've seen. I think those are the first two guys. I'm sure Christian's going to go first, but if you're me, I'm looking at Devon Witherspoon and getting pretty excited about having him on my football team.
All right, that was fantastic. So how would you handle those two guys? Like, would you take Witherspoon over Gonzalez because of his place?
Yeah, just because he's got what you need in today's NFL, ability to cover people. A cornerback needy team's going to look at him and say that he answers the question. I think a team that's looking, that already has a guy or maybe two guys, and they looking for the down the road player, and it can start right away in the slot. You draft Witherspoon because he's going to change your mentality on that side of the ball. It's apparent in every single tape you put on. I probably had 10 chase tackles that I could have put on there that you would have just been like, wow, okay, this kid's a player and he cares about football, obviously.
Well, look, this pretty much speaks for itself as far as that soundbite goes for him. What's very funny about that is, again, we listened to him saying that on that clip. And at the front of this clip, he said, once again,
this kid, Christian Gonzalez, is by far the best corner in this year's draft. He's big, he's fast, he's silky smooth, he accelerates in and out of coverage.
So he goes through all that, but ends up at the end of it saying, I would take Witherspoon over Gonzalez. And I think it comes down to that innate thing I talked about, where you hear these people speaking about Witherspoon and the way they talk about it, especially former players or people that really do have played the sport. There's something that really does resonate in watching this kid play on the college tape. And a guy like this a legend in the Tampa Bay area, a guy who's really had an underrated career. Thankfully, he did go to the Hall of Fame. He should have. If you look around the amount of takeaways he had, I think he might even had more or darn near as many, if not more, interceptions than Richard Sherman did. So he was a guy with a very prolific career for as far as production goes, on top of being part of that legendary defense, saying, hey, I would actually be taking Devon Witherspoon over Gonzalez, even though in that first clip he said Gonzalez is the far and away in the opening clip, the better way player. Kind of interesting between the dichotomy of those two things and how he's saying it, right? But I think it does speak to just the love he has. You talk about him saying, hey, he's a kind of like culture change, mentality change kind of guy that you're bringing into the building there with this kind of guy. And you don't usually hear people speak about cornerbacks in that fashion, with that kind of a claim. Megan does touch on an interesting point that he did bring up, which is that he looked at him as a guy that was going to play in the slot. And I think that he didn't kind of pull it apart as much initially as he did later on, because if you heard the later part of the clip, he speaks to the fact that you're getting in a slot guy initially that you can then change down the road to the outside. I don't know if Seattle looks at him in that way of things. Even here in early OTAs, they've had him playing on the outside. And first and foremost, he's going to get his opportunities, I think, to play out there. And I think he's going to excel, Megan, playing in those kind of positions in that way. But the door is open for if you come up against, let me give you a scenario on this one, Megan. You come up against Detroit in week 2 and you're on the road, and Detroit doesn't have Jamison Williams because he didn't get the memo that you shouldn't be gambling on football games last year. Evidently nobody told him. And they already are a little bit weaker at their wide receiver position as it stood anyway, losing, I believe it was DJ Shark this offseason. So their core looks a little bit light on the surface of things. And they're going to have Amon St. Brown probably by week 2, unless something doesn't happen well with him. And so you go, okay, we don't have a lot of other places to fear here this upcoming week. Maybe this particular week we just commit to having Devon Witherspoon travel with Amon St. Brown. Wherever Amon goes, Witherspoon is with him. And because he excels so well in man coverage, and he's coming along as his own player, that fits very well to him to have him do that on a particular week. You wouldn't have to do it every week, but just on those given situations when you're playing teams like that. The Rams, Megan, would be another one with Cooper Kupp. Who else do the Rams have when you play this upcoming season out on the outside that gives you any kind of fear? Right? They moved on from Allen Robinson. Robert Woods is long gone. Odell Beckham's long gone. Brandon Cooks is long gone. They're down to really only having Cooper Kupp, Van Jefferson, Poo Atwell, Schroenecker. Those are your receivers. So maybe that's another game where you look at it and saying, I can move this guy down into the slot into these situations here on Cooper Kupp. And I'm not going to maybe stop Kupp, but he's not able to pilfer us like he had so often in years past. We can actually kind of maybe, hold him down a little bit and force that Rams offense to have to go to other places that they don't have to go to. So you wouldn't do it every week, I don't think, Megan, but I do think it opens the door to being able to fit it to certain opponents to make it happen. Space, Mr. Dog, what's up? It's good to see you in the house. Washington Fist Quest, what is up, my man? Good to see you guys in here. Welcome to the inaugural members-only video. We'll be getting these out every week. Thursday, 5 to 7 is going to be what I'm kind of shooting for-ish. It'll be something that moves depending on the schedules around that stuff, but we're going to hit that on Thursdays, and we're going to be expanding beyond that. So this is just to begin, and then we're going to continue to kind of grow this from here. So thank you to guys for all of your support out there as members, patrons of the channel, and all that stuff. I do appreciate you. Megan says, can you please explain the different coverages, B? I'm so confused. Well, in this case, it's more about where you're aligning the guy. There's man coverage, which means, Megan, essentially you're just trying to man up on a player across from you, and you're just trying to stay as tight in coverage as you can with him. That's the whole purpose of what you're doing in man coverage, is I'm going to be in essentially the back pocket of the receiver step for step. In zone coverage, you're playing to a spot. You're playing to a space. And then if any players enter your zone, you then pick them up and cover them. But you don't try to play it as aggressively as you do in man coverage. But what they're talking about, of course, with the slot, Megan, is, the theory would go here, Devon Witherspoon plays on the outside for you as a starter. But what he's talking about, Ronde, is that you would move him into a slot role, as your slot corner in situations when you have, let's say, 3 wide receiver offenses out there, right? When teams go 3 wide, you'd put him out there or dime. Which I think it's open to do that, but that's the basic differences between the two, is the man in the zone. One you're in the back pocket, one you're just going to run with the guy. The other, you want to make sure your space is cleared. You might come in on a zone, Megan, and cover a guy for a moment, then he leaves the zone and you got to pick up somebody else who's entering your zone. So it's not one where you're just going to take the first guy and stay with him. Sometimes you've got to kind of be reactive on your feet. Megan says, so you're saying the coverages change depend on who we play? Kind of. This is less about the coverages changing, because we're going to run man zone. We're going to run what we run. This is more about the slot. The slot corner is different from the outside corner, just because they're both cornerbacks, right, Megan? Like a left guard is a guard, like a right guard is. But you want sometimes you got to have 2 different skill sets from those guys. A left tackle is a tackle like a right tackle is. But there are 2 different skill sets that you're going to want from it. So a slot corner is technically a cornerback, but that doesn't mean that they're put together the same way, or the skill requirements for them are exactly the same as what you get on the outside. Jack says, thanks for all you do, Hawks Nest. Stoked to be here. My pleasure, Jack. I've been long meaning to get you guys some extra benefits. I do really well here with the memberships on the channel, and it's been tremendous, all that support. So I want to find ways to get this back to you guys and really show you guys that and make sure that we're giving you guys some bennies for this. It's the least I can do, and it's easy enough to do at least 1 show a week. Hopefully we're going to get to the point on this of really being able to do this like a daily show, an hour a day, popping in and out on top of the other normal shows that we do on the channel. That's going to be kind of where this is, long-term sort of looking to go. Megan says, so in zone, you don't stick to the guy? No, in zone, you don't. So I could be dropping back, and here comes the first guy in my zone, right? Now he enters my zone. Think of the zone as like a 9-foot circular or a square foot, 9 square feet, right? And that if that guy enters my 9-foot square zone, I'm picking him up while he's in my 9-foot zone. But if he leaves my 9-foot zone, I want to then send him into somebody else's zone. So the structure of the zone defense, Megan, is that if he's leaving my zone, he's entering somebody else's. So now I need to stay back in my square footage area. It's like everybody's got a little mini house, right, Megan? Think of it like that. All your defenders on the field have a mini house. And they're all required to cover the space within that little mini house on the football field. And if they pull out of that mini house, then they're leaving their hole open for another player to come into it. All right, let's get to the next soundbite I had. So Ronde got me a little hyped on that. I don't think that he's right in that it's only slot at first. I think he's going to be able to defend the outside, but I think he's got some flexibility. Here's going to be just a quick little clip from Steve Smith. I'm sure this is one you guys have probably seen because it's been pushed out on YouTube considerably, but just a fun one. And Steve's very colorful.
All right, let's move.
Wait.
Devon Witherspoon. You want to get some boogers knocked out of you? He's the number 1 ranked corner out there and watching his film. Yeah, he is. The only knock I got on him is he's grabby and too aggressive at times. This is his first season of high production.
Those feel like good problems, no?
And they're great problems, but I have to say, as a wide receiver, I dislike handsy, aggressive corner. Can I catch this pass in peace, please?
Ice up, son.
He has such a knack to diagnose a play or a route pretty darn good. He could hit you, he could run with you, but he also has the ability to play the mind game and process.
I love these comments from Steve Smith, another guy that when he speaks about football, I'm definitely going to be listening to what he's got to say. And it was his number 1 cornerback as well. You can see him just glowingly speaking about him, from the way he hits to the run and cover to the way he diagnoses things, similar in things that what Ronde said with the grabbiness. And I think there was 2 points that Ronde pointed to that I want to address a little bit, which is the grabbiness. Yes, that's going to be something he's going to need to clean up. When you do have a guy running in man situations, man coverage situations, you will see more grabbiness than when you see a guy running more often in zone coverage, because the zone guy is going to be off coverage. He's going to be 10 yards off the ball. He's going to be then dropping back into his bail technique, whereas the man guy is going to usually be up there in press coverage. And so he's just naturally going to be within kind of arm's range, spitting distance of being able to, go there and be a little bit grabby. That is a part that he's going to need to clean up, but this is a part that I don't have any worries about getting cleaned up, because we have one Coach Carroll, who is a man, as I've said many times, absolutely understands how to teach the cornerback position and to get the technique right. When was the last time we looked at a cornerback here in Seattle and we said, oh boy, that guy's technique sucks. He's so wonky technically. No, Carroll's going to get that stuff clean. That's one thing that he does really well. And so when it comes to that coming along, I don't have worries with that. I also think there's some explanations here, because Ronde also talks about when he comes out of the back pedal, getting back on his heels. And that's true. I'm seeing the same thing. Where the back pedal, you ideally want them up on the front of their feet. And then, it's like a typewriter going backwards a little bit, to where then they can flip those hips when they want to turn over inside. Whereas he's going back, and then forward out that way, right? So instead of back, hip swivel, transition, and turn, it's back, and then come back forward. Kind of the slow, little bit of an slow. Now he's so quick with it, like Ronde showed. He's so fast that he's just so gifted naturally in that respect that he can get around that technique flaw. But that's going to be something like with the handsiness, he's going to have to get cleaned up. Again, I think it's something Coach Carroll's going to be able to easily probably put together fairly quickly. I don't think this is something that's going to plague this kid over a long period of time. And it's explainable, because the thing that stood out to me, one of the reasons why this Witherspoon was not a 2, 3, 4, 0-star basically recruit, was that he was so new to football. I don't think he started playing until junior year or something like that at high school. So when you go and see the technique isn't good, but the instincts are on point, his ability to diagnose is on point, he plays with his hair on fire, he's a willing tackler and a clean willing tackler, as Ronde talked about. I've heard that mentioned a few different times over too. You go through all those things and you go, okay, he's doing this already. Like Tariq, almost it's a bit of a microcosm of Tariq, because Tariq did all of what he did last year, as so many players noted, as Richard Sherman noted, without having the technique, without knowing what he was doing, without being able to read and react and recognize things pre-snap. Like a normal corner who, if he had gone through being a corner in junior high and high school and 3 years of college, would have this stuff kind of naturally in their bag. But Tariq's having to develop it a little later on, yet he's still playing magnificently, still dominating without having that thing that for many players would be a necessity in their bag for them to even walk on the football field and compete. Sure, a guy like Sherman, who certainly was an overachiever from what his athletic ability and speed ability were, getting the most out of it, has to shake his head with this kid out there running like he's running, changing direction, being as long and explosive as he is. And so I think that stuff's going to come along in a similar fashion with Witherspoon. It's not the same kind of thing, but it is the same thing in that the guy is new to the position, like Tariq was new to the position, as he had just changed over from receiver, I think only 2 years prior in college, to becoming a cornerback. And so this is where that up end, that top side, that ceiling starts to raise in your eyes and your views, right? Where the explanations for the rough technique are explainable, not only explainable, but then give you a lot of really good hope for the future as far as being able to clean that stuff up, which will then only make him a better player. Exactly as it is with Tariq Woolen. And once we've got those two lockdown guys on the side, I'm telling you, whoa, look out. Kevin Lone Ice, thank you for the $5 donation, my man. I really do appreciate that. It's great to see you. Great turnout here from the members here on the channel and patrons in the channel. But thank you for that donation, brother. He says, great content as always. Go Hawks. Hey, man, go Hawks. That is for sure. And thank you so much, man. Appreciate all your guys' support here. I've been really overdue in getting this kind of content out to you guys, but we're going to getting it cooking now. Roy Froelich says, Sauce is grabby as hell. He doesn't get flagged. Why should Devon? Hey, it's a good point, man. Maybe, Roy, they'll earmark Devon like the league earmarked Sauce and letting him get away with that. Sure would be cold-blooded if he doesn't even get away with half the stuff a Sauce did last year or will continue to get away with at that point. But you may have a good point there. Maybe there's just certain guys, if they get drafted with a high enough status, you get the Sauce rules as a cornerback. Mark says, I can commit pass interference if too handsy. You can. It can. I will say, it doesn't go cold in college. So that thing about Ronde talking about, it stands out to me too. There's so many corners you can go through. I mean, Porter Jr. was this way at Penn State. These guys will maul guys on the outside, and the refs just don't call it. They let them get away with it. So you do have to clean it up as you get more to the pro level in that respect of things. But I think that he's got so much natural ability that it's not going to be as much a problem. It's not like a Brandon Browner thing, where Browner kind of needed to be able to slip in those little grabs and pulls and tugs and stuff to kind of stay in phase. I don't think it's going to be the same way when you got the guys that are the hyper athletic guys that are, really fast. And by all accounts, Witherspoon really wasn't at 100% on the pro day. He seems to have believed that he probably could run somewhere in the neighborhood of like the 4.3-ish range, 4.35, something like that. Mr. Dog says, what's your current take on Jamal's situation? Will he play week 1 and be his old self? Hard to think that the players are necessarily going to be their old self only 1 year removed after his injury, especially seeming as this injury is one that's going to take every minute up until the last second in order for him to play game 1. I think Jamal is going to find his way, being that he is a bit of a warrior in this respect. He will be on the football field. Is it going to be a little bit like Quandre last year, where we're getting a little bit more of the, a lot of what he once former was, a lot of that was a weird way of saying it, but a lot of his former self, or are we getting all of his former self? Probably would have to wait an extra year to get him fully back into health, where he has an off season of just purely training at that point and not rehabbing. But that doesn't mean you're not going to get a good player this year. You just may not get, you may get 94% of Jamal Adams in what he was last year, 93%, not last year, but of him prior, I guess you could say. So if I'm making a guess, and I'm making this in the dark, Mr. Dog, I don't have a lot to go off of outside of the comments I've heard, which is that he's on schedule. Not ahead of schedule, not behind schedule, but just right on schedule. And that, as Carol has said, will take him right up until game 1 in almost kind of a 50-50 fashion. The team does tend to be pretty conservative with these injuries. So if I was to make a guess on this, I would say that he's probably going to be held out at first, even maybe couple of games. I mean, that Rams game, do you need Jamal Adams in that first one? Maybe not. Is the Lions game going to come down to Jamal Adams' appearance or not? Maybe. You could maybe make that argument that would be the case. But I think the team will probably, they've always with these kind of injuries been pretty slow with guys too. They took their time with Rashad Penny. They don't tend to rush back on the ACLs. Roy Farlick says, I see 12 thumbs. Is there really only 12 people on the stream? That's right, folks. Hit that like button. Well, that's it. Probably on this, Roy. It doesn't actually maybe matter on the hit the like button with this one because these are only going to be members only videos. So these will only be if it's a good video for the members of the channel, I guess, to check out. Because this one won't go on the algo. But it can't hurt. It can't hurt, though. You're right about that. Nicholas, thank you for the $5 donation as well, Nicholas. Very kind of you, brother. And good to see you in the chat. He says, Brandon, we appreciate and love your content. Please don't ever quit. Go Hawks. Woo! Hey, man, you know it. I love doing this. I ain't never going to quit doing this. So this is my favorite thing. And now that I've been able to line in because of guys, your support, guys, girls, your support that's allowed this to happen this year. It was an amazing transition where right about mid-season, we were putting in enough money from the donations from the members of the channel and patrons and all that, the ad revenue, it came through enough to be able to kind of, for the most part, I'm almost fully slid now to it's as close as you can get to being just 100% on the channel 24/7. And I've been loving being able to just get off, head pops off the pillow every day and trying to figure out what am I going to create content-wise for the channel? What are we going to put together for the next video? What's an angle I want to cover for the upcoming future? So it's amazing, man. I appreciate you just as much, man, 100% over. But we're going to keep growing. We're going to keep expanding this. Nicholas says, boy, am I glad I'm a member. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Megan says 93% Jamal. I'd take that. Better than 0% Jamal. I'll take it too, Megan. Jamal at 93% will be valuable to this team and helpful in that secondary, and you've got enough other guys back there to hold the line and do things, get things held down. That's enough to take this team into a stage of where I've looked at it, Megan, where they need to be top 15 for this team to get to a place of being elite. Just get themselves out of the back endsville, statistically speaking, as far as the defense goes, and get themselves up in a more middle of the road. And that could open the door to this team getting and being elite. Devo Martel, hey, Brandon, I'm 30 minutes behind, so I'm watching from the beginning. Appreciate you, buddy. Go Hawks. Well, thank you, Devo. Welcome on in the chat, man. More of these to come on this, and no worries on being late. I mean to put these out. If I can start at 5 o'clock or so, that's going to be the goal for me. Sometimes I just can't quite get things cranked out quite fast enough, but that's the long-term goal here, is to go 5 o'clock every Thursday, and then we're going to be doing more shows, especially when we get to the season, especially into training camp. There'll be more shows then that we're going to do throughout the week as well in addition to that. So these will all be coming to you guys as members of the channel, specific benefits to you. So keep those memberships rolling, keep them going. There'll be more to come for sure. Mark says, better thumbs up than some streams, laughing out loud. So true, man. So true. Megan says, best thing I did was become a member. Never regretted it, and I never will. Hell yeah, Megan. Hell yeah. Well, let's keep it going here. I got a couple more clips that I wanted to play for you guys that I think I found interesting. And the next one's going to be Chris Sims. Chris Sims is a guy whose opinion I can sometimes waver on back and forth. He being one of the guys, I think that he had, one of you guys will remind me what he had, Will Anderson at fifth best defensive end at one point, and completely insistent that Tyree Wilson was going to be the first edge off the board, according to his inside sources. I wasn't buying that one at all. Like, really, Chris? He's going to slide like that, huh? You think he's going to slide like that? And then what ends up happening, Will Anderson ends up going top 5, as we all long had thought. Chris does have a little bit of back and forth with me sometimes on some of his opinions, but he does get some stuff really right, and he does hit it right on the head on a lot of other things. And on this particular one, I happen to like what he had to say. Let me play this one for you.
And I know you love that pick. Oh, I love it. And, again, to the point that I made earlier in the show, this is where I think the draft was crazy this year. Here's a guy that, he knew he was going in the top 6 or 7. He had no idea he was going to the Seattle Seahawks. I don't know anybody in the world that had linked him to them. So, to your point with the Lions, I bet you that was a huge shock. I mean, if it's a shock to Devon Witherspoon, it's a shock to the team that was picking after. But, I mean, my man crush right here, going to the place where they like psychos in a good way, and now he's in the psycho capital of the NFL with Pete Carroll and company, the place that brought us Earl Thomas and Michael Bennett and Cam Chancellor and Richard Sherman, some of the coolest psychos we've ever seen in the history of football. I'm mad at that I didn't throw it out there earlier. I am. I thought they were okay at corner, so I didn't think it was like a huge need, right? Michael Jackson, Tariq Woolen over there. But, wow, you couple him with Jamal Adams and Quandre Diggs, and you start to just go, whoa. I mean, they got some versatility, some talent. He's an island corner who is a kamikaze like Troy Polamalu. That's where it's awesome. And, I mean, you just saw the highlights last night, right? Was there a better highlight package to watch than Devon Witherspoon when he got drafted? I mean, it was one of those where I was literally like, hey, guys, watch. This is going to be amazing. Watch this. And he never disappoints.
Woo! Chris is in. Chris is in. That gets me stoked. I hear that clip from Chris, and it does get me hyped on it. And again, you hear this same thing you hear in I don't know if you guys are getting. Maybe I'm just hearing it in my own head a little bit, but there's something a little bit extra special in the way when you hear Steve Smith or Chris Sims or Ronde Barber and how they're talking about him. It's something that is not necessarily the exact words they're choosing to say or how they're articulating it, but it's just in the general energy and vibe you're feeling off him when talking about this guy. And maybe I'm just kind of feeling it myself off him in that respect of things, but these do seem to be in cases with this player and these guys, one in which they view and look at him as one of the more special guys in their view from this draft in their evaluation process, bar none, regardless of position. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to include these clips is I think that these are not guys that are Seahawks fans. These are not guys that are connected to the organization. These are guys that are just purely speaking in Ronde's part before the draft. What do you think? Steve Smith before the draft. Chris Sims, this happens after the draft. But I'm sure if you go back to looking at Chris Sims' cornerback rankings, he's going to have this guy as his, number one guy. Especially if he's thought of him going to Seahawks as he probably didn't put him as much to Seattle like I didn't put him much to Seattle because he's got so much man tendencies to him. But maybe the team's looking to transition a little bit more to the man tendencies. Especially makes sense, understanding that Tariq Woolen last year did his best stuff out of man. Got one more clip here I wanted to play you guys. And this one is from the coach of the Fighting Illini, Brett Bilima. And Brett Bilima is an interesting guy here to talk about because he was also, of course, Russell Wilson's coach out at Wisconsin, if I'm not mistaken. And so a guy that does have a long connection there with Schneider and talking to him about players and guiding him on stuff. And so he was on 710, and I wanted to play this one because I thought, again, this is a guy that coached this kid. He has seen, as Bilima, a lot of football players, a lot of NFL-capable football players come through his program in various places. So this is a guy who, when he talks about him, is certainly going to have a player's back who came through his program and was successful and was drafted really highly. But again, like these other players and how they're speaking about Witherspoon and the way that they're talking about him, kind of think of that in that same light here as I play this clip.
Mike, I think you're exactly right. He's a player that, does believe in film study and prep, but there's nothing like having awareness on the field, right? He really, truly understands splits, cuts, if he's into the boundary to the field. A lot of people make reference to that play against Indiana when he blew up the running back flare screen. I always say this, I think Spoon probably knew that play was going to be run before the quarterback even called it, right? Like, he just truly has great instincts. And the best news is I think his best football is yet to come.
When we heard Pete Carroll talking about him, Pete Carroll seemed really struck by his work ethic. Do you have maybe one example or a story that comes to mind where you just thought, this kid just prepares in a different way?
Yeah, Stacey, great question. I actually got a call from John Schneider and Coach Carroll the day before, so I knew something was up. It was kind of interesting leading up to the draft. I'd heard from anybody that had the third pick to the ninth pick to the eighth pick, 7-6, and then when I got that text from John, I started smiling because I knew something was in the air. And then, Spoon's made a huge impression on me from the first day I saw him to where we are today. He just is a guy that, as competitive he is in the game day, he's even more competitive in practice because now he knows the guys, right? And I don't care what the situation. It could be Skelly, it could be a team period, it could be one-on-ones. Like, he is going to compete his tail off on a daily basis to be at his best on any given snap. So a relentless work ethic. I think a lot of times, not to speak from you, Michael, but I think wide receivers and DBs get a little hey, these guys don't love the weight room, they don't love to work, they don't love to do all this, and it's the exact opposite. Spoon is engaged. He knows that the work that he puts in on Monday through Friday plays off on Saturdays, and I think the NFL will see the same thing.
Yeah, Coach, everything I hear about him makes me feel like he's going to fit in perfectly up here with the competitiveness, with the making sure that he's prepared. What is he like off the field? Because the Hawks do a great job of drafting and selecting good character guys, and it sounds like he's good on the field. What is he like off the field?
Yeah, he definitely is a guy that like to have fun, with huge personality, great demeanor. If you don't see him, you're definitely going to hear him. He loves to talk a little smack. But, off the field, like, I can't tell you how many times he helped us with guys in difficult moments, a tremendous mentor for the younger guys. I distinctly remember last year during one of our bye weeks, I know I had him playing at a high level, so I said, listen, this bye week is going to be a rest week for you. You're going to get some conditioning, but I just want your body to have a week off from the contact that you've been putting it through. And he spent every minute on that sideline talking to the younger players, guiding them up, coaching them up. And then when his decision came where he, was going to forego our bowl game and jump the NFL, had a moment where he was very emotional about who he has grown into while he's been here. And, much has been said, but, he wasn't not only a 3-star, a 2-star, a 1-star, he was a 0.0 star when he got recruited out of high school. So this kid carries a chip on his shoulders, both on left and right. He just doesn't have one. He's got two. And it shows up in his demeanor on a daily basis. And I would tell you this, right? The reason Seattle has had success, I've known John Schneider for a long time, and the detail that his crew and his people put in to the people that they're bringing into that organization is second to none. And it's another great reason why I think Seattle's going to have another great resurgence. And hopefully, as this defense continues to grow with a couple of our players, is going to make it better and better.
Well, there you go. Bilima speaking as effusively, I think, as you can speak about a player, and not only, again, covering what he does on the field. If these players aren't leaders off the field, if there's that stuff, they're not going to reference kind of these specificities he's referencing with them being on the sideline, and that they've put his trust in him at times to go to guys in the background. We heard very much on the day of the draft or days of the draft here, and the guys that they were picking and taking away, be it Witherspoon or Derek Hall, which you certainly get this impression from him, or Oluwatimi, guys who you can look to eventually settle in and become leaders in the locker room. It's not going to come from a rookie in his first year. It's going to probably take a little bit of time. But this was one of the defining attributes to the Legion of Boom that has been missing from the team, I think, since the Legion of Boom moved on. And that is that, yes, we've had a bit of a talent disparity from what we had with those teams that went to back-to-back Super Bowls. No doubt about that. I wouldn't argue that with anybody. But what you've also had at the same point in time with that is I think have had a little bit less caring. Not as many guys as all in. And that's not shade to be thrown at the players who've come through here in recent years, that they haven't been professionals or enough about football or in that respect. What the Legion of Boom did is they went above and beyond. They lived, they breathed football, almost in the way of a samurai warrior living and breathing that life. Sort of the same kind of thing in the way they did it. And it's what helped them, on top of being as talented as they was, to be generational, to be historic. But it's not the requirement to necessarily go to becoming historic. It is a requirement, I think, to getting yourself to being a Super Bowl team, is to have the guys in the locker room that are cultivating that environment of being, we say it all about ball. We say it as this sort of clichéic axiom that you throw out, but it's truly about being all about ball, not just when you're on the football field, but then when you're stepping away from it and thinking about other pathways that you can help yourself. And it's hard to do this with pro athletes. These are multimillionaires. These are multimillionaires from the time they first crawl onto the field, a lot of them. It's hard to keep those guys motivated at that level. And it's not shade to them if they can't, because they are still being professionals. They're doing the bare minimum. But are they going above and beyond? Are they doing more? Geno Smith's showing you above and beyond more. He's showing you leadership here this offseason. When Bobby Wagner steps up on the bag drills first thing and he's showing you that energy in OTAs, and he's here in OTAs, that shows you something. You got DK running out there the first drills in receiving corps, showing you he's going to be out there running OTAs himself. He doesn't have to be out here. This is the stuff that we start to see when I talk about this team getting to an elite status this year. Say nothing of beyond that, into this year. It's the leadership angle with those players taking that ownership in that way of understanding what it will take to be special. And they don't have to go far to hear from other players who are going to tell them what it does take. Although the Legion of Boom members are all there right now in the background. They're all there with them on the field and showing up and talking to them and discussing this. You guys want to get to this stage? You want to get to what we got? You want to taste that fruit that we tasted? It doesn't just happen because you hope, wish, and pray. This isn't about manifesting it. This is about physically manifesting it, which means the hard work, the lonely work, the stuff that you're not going to film for Instagram, the tape study that never stops. You've got to go through all of that if you want to get to where we got. And if this team can get guys that in collective can take that ownership, because if you only got 3 or 4 guys, you don't have the whole locker room. If you only got 6 or 7 guys, you don't have the whole locker room. You need to get everybody in that way, and it's hard to do. We're in a modern age where everybody's looking around at every little different thing, up and down and back and forward. But this is a pathway, I think, for this team to get himself back to elite by having guys that take that kind of ownership in that unique fashion that you just don't see in football. It is, by the way, something that you don't see very common in other parts. We've been better at it even the last few years than other teams, where it's even worse with those guys doing the bare minimum. You know, right up to the line, then I'm checking out. I'm hitting my punch card. I'm walking out to my car. I'm out. And this team has made a very certain effort here into making sure that they're putting guys on this team that are really all about ball, not just really uber talented. Certainly came down the pipe probably in some of the decision making when it came down to deciding between a guy like Jalen Carter, for instance, and Devon Witherspoon. But when we look at Witherspoon and what we're hearing about from Bilima, this is a guy that you have as a future leader back there in that secondary. And the leaders tend to have to be the guys that are also the dominant guys. That's the thing about being a leader is it's hard to be a leader if you're kind of sucky as a player. You also have to be pretty good so the guys will listen to you, you know, when you speak. So Seahawks with this draft, with this player, have not only got themselves a kid who can play outside, can play some slot if you want to specialize him on some guys, if you want to take away some of the tougher targets on a particular team on a given week. But then you also have beyond that now a guy that can grow into helping to become a leader on this team along with others. And then that can help, I think, to forge this team in a way that gets them committed in the fashion you need to be committed to really go back there and push to be a Super Bowl contending team once again. May come this year. May have to wait another year for this to fully come out. He is a rookie. It's hard for rookies to go out there and be leaders instantaneously. But this is why I say on a variety of different ways that I trust in how the Seahawks are stacking this team and putting this team together as far as making it a championship contender. They're taking the right steps. They're bringing in the right mentalities. And they're going through the blueprint of what worked formerly and following along pretty closely aligned to it, I must say. And that, I think, will help to bring about the success as it once did 10 years ago. And Megan, Chris Sims, I think, was saying lovingly the psycho line. I don't think he was saying it in a mean way. I think he was meaning it in a affectionate way. Mark says, I've become good at making B laugh and telling the truth at the same time. That's the best kind of laugh, man. What's up, Moo? Hawks fan, those sound bites and videos sure get me fired up. Can't wait for the start to the season, says Hawks fan. Well, I was hoping they would, man. I was trying to find some ones as I could. I had a couple others I was just about to include in, but they were all along saying the same lines of what these clips caught and kind of encapsulated, but they got me hyped too. I'm glad you're seeing the same thing, Hawks fan, where you're feeling, or at least hearing the same thing, not seeing, but hearing the same thing from these guys' voices, which is an excitement for this player that I think is unique from how guys like Chris Sims talk about all of these prospects. And there are certain guys that you can just see get a little glint to their eye and they go, and there's something with this guy here. This guy right here is like, he's kind of good. So I'm a little bit extra with him. I don't know what it is, just something. I hope that's the case here with this guy. And I do think it will be. Roy says his ability to inflict extreme punishment on those foolish enough to touch the ball is what I love best. Me too. Tackling is a dying art form in the NFL. Part of why we had a problem last year in stopping the run, did it come from a lackluster, front defensive line? Yeah. Was it your linebackers were also failing in their ability to get off second level blocks, diagnose, read and react, flow to the ball? Yeah. But was there also a third element here that probably hasn't been talked about enough on this team last year? And that is that we have left long away from the hawk tackling technique of where we formerly had that mastered in the Legion of Boom days. And the hawk tackling technique is, of course, in basic terms, you come up to the ball carrier and you're looking to attack their nearest leg to you. You attack high around the thigh and you wrap and you roll. And the thing with that technique was that it was established on the back of a time when there was still two-a-days, when there was the endless off-season practices, when there were the padded practices when it came to training camp. You know, that those were all things that helped you be able to better instill the tackling ability. I think it's now kind of coming down, Roy, with this when it comes to tackling, to whether you either got that bite in you, that dog in you, or you don't now. And that there's a lot of guys in the NFL making their business decisions that just don't want to tackle, that it will always be subpar, poor tacklers, and you just can't get that light to turn on with them. You can't get them motivated in that respect to do it. They don't have the willingness. Like, no, it hurts. It hurts when I got to go down tackle. It makes my shoulder sore. Well, versus the other guys that go in there and they will throw their body around. And I think it translates with him going to the next level, even though he's at only maybe 190 pounds. Because the best tackling corner, and a lot of some really great tackling corners I've seen throughout my lifetime, have been some of the undersized guys. It's really more about want, will, great technique, as Ronde Barber spoke about. I think Sims talked about. He's clean in his tackling ability. It's not that he's coming up laying dirty hits, head-to-head shots, looking to injure. He's just coming up laying a hard, clean hit. And that's going to translate to the next level. He's not going to have to change anything. Like Marquise Blair had to kind of figure out how to, I don't know if he ever really did, because that was a headhunter back in college when you drafted him. And she never quite kind of figured out how to make it work with the hard shots at the next level, I don't think. So it's going to continue to translate, Roy. He's going to be, I think, one of the better tacklers from the corner position in all the NFL. And I think he'll get there pretty immediately. And it will help. Even if it's just a little bit of a small degree, it will help. In stopping the run, being better in stopping the run. Mark says, it worries me when the national sports press is putting the Hawks on the pedestals, as they are often wrong. Yeah, it's a little scary. I like it better, Mark, when it's quiet and, they're just kind of ignoring us and we're back here in the shadows growing bigger and bigger and bigger. Just getting oh. But we are indeed starting to get the national press. People are taking note of what Schneider and Coach Carroll have built here. And you had just on the back of these very strong drafts, you haven't had any real bad moves go against you. The thought process of, hey, they did what they did last year as well without Jamal Adams for the whole year, and they aren't getting him back now on top of that. They've got, pro ready-made players that can fit into roles there immediately in Jackson Smith and Devon Witherspoon and Charbonnet in their early picks. I think there's also a little bit of an acknowledgement here, Mark, from my standpoint, when I look at the reasoning behind hearing the analysis on why teams or why national pundits and the perspective is shifting a little bit more to Seattle. When you hear them talking about it, they are putting it together in the right way. They're presenting their case from a fashion of not just the surface level view that does normally plague their views at times when they're looking at us from that perspective, but that you see them saying they've got these 2 drafts back to back. Gino's established himself. The young guys are going to come forward. They spend good money this offseason for the most part. But they're getting the Jamal Adams back. Yeah, they start to go, oh, okay, and the NFC's wide open. That's the other part of this too, Mark, is that the NFC is probably weak this next year as it's been in 8 years. I think it's been about that long. Philly, San Francisco, definitely those are going to be really tough teams. You don't know where anybody's coming out of the NFC South. I don't know who it's going to be. Maybe Atlanta, but who knows on that one. But even the NFC East, I'm not buying the Giants. Cowboys have got some holes. They got some good parts, but they got a lot of holes for all their good parts too. It's also just such a wide open race out there, I think, Mark, in the NFC. And, pundits are looking at that versus the AFC, which is a battleground. Kelly, how you doing? Good to see you in the chat. Hope all is well on your end out there. Roy says tackling desire has a lot to do with conditioning. Yeah. Megan asks how. I think what Roy's saying there, Megan, is if you've got a guy that's not in good shape and he's out of breath on the football field really quickly because he's not in that proper football shape, then your technique gets sloppy, your effort wanes. Even if the want is there, the body is not quite as willing in that moment. And so it can also be representatory of conditioning. And I think there is a little bit of that to maybe be said that's at play here too, Megan, where it's a combination of technique in recent years and conditioning, because the lack of practice would affect both, right? It would affect the technique, and also, hey, we're not practicing as much in game time like conditions to prepare our bodies in the way that we have to properly prepare them to be ready to go in this, for a full game, 100 miles an hour. And as those players often say, you can do every little creative drill you want to try to do to replicate game situations. But at the end of the day, there's no way to replicate mano a mano, each man being padded up, running full speed, treating it like game conditions entirely. That's the best kind of practice and preparation. And as we've talked about many times before on the channel, there's just, the CBA has made their choice. They've made their bed that they don't want to have that practice time out there like they once did. And so that's going to, the tackling and bad tackling, I think, is just kind of going to be for this thing, every team gets affected by it, so everybody's got to deal with it. But all the much more reason why you want to stack as many natural tacklers on the defensive side of the ball as you can as a forefront skill that you look for, because of the fact that you naturally can't train it if they have it as an ailment. And Seattle's probably, with a little bit in this pick, recognizing that just a little bit. Just a tad. Just a hair. And so definitely let's get in a couple of questions. I'd love if you guys got any ideas here on the channel going forward that you like to see as far as any videos or anything like that. We're definitely a little bit open here in the off season to maybe do a couple of things here before we get to the season, if there's anything you guys have been looking for. Working on right now the Cameron Young video breakdown on him. Tape's a little rough there, guys. Having a hard time getting sold up on Cameron Young at this point still as a player. I hope the team can train him up and Hurt can train him up, because it's kind of it's a bit dodgy on the surface of it at this point. Also working on a large end video for the channel still, so I don't know if I'm going to get that one out anytime soon, but I'm working on that in the background. But definitely open to you guys as well if you guys have any suggestions on the channel kind of going forward here a little bit. I will continue to keep expanding. As I said, the key on these they're going to kind of be, when we come in on these little member streams, is that we do them short with the thought processes that I do more of them. So we're going to try to start out with one on Thursday, but the hope is to quickly expand, especially by the time we get to training camp, give you guys some daily reports coming out of training camp and what's going on with that, and then just kind of keep building and building from there. And hopefully by the time we get, let's say, into mid-season, we got this thing going 5 days a week, hour and a half, 2 hours a day, whatever we can kind of stay in on that, kind of just keep it lean, mean, and tight on that side of it. But you guys got any kind of final questions or anything you guys want to talk about, post it on into the chat here and we can kind of cover it. Megan says, I've tried and failed with Cameron Young, B. I hope you see something. I got nothing. I've gone through so much tape on him, and I've stacked up plays that are the good plays and the bad plays. The bad plays far out surpass the good plays, and there's just some brutal reps. There's reps of him just getting dumped on his back in single blocks. Too many times where he's getting locked up in single blocks. He just doesn't have anything he offers with his hands. The effort's there, the motor's there, but beyond all that, I don't know if I see as much the power and strength as Hurt and Carroll have talked about in the guy. And maybe I'm just missing it. There are those prospects, where you just can't quite, see it in them. So, and definitely, Megan, when I do eventually get this Largent video out, there'll be a lot of Zorn to Largent shots. I've gone through a lot of game tape on it, actually. It's been one I've been working on for a while, but I just can't quite get the way I want the script part of it to go down right. But it's one that will be eventually when we get up on the channel, and hopefully I'd like to do it this year. I got the raw cut-ups and all of the clips kind of put together. I just have to figure out how to present it right. Sometimes it's just finding that angle on some of these upload vids, what's the angle on this particular player, how to put it through and whatnot, Meg says, good to know. You can't have one without the other. That's what I've heard. That's what I've heard. I've watched more on him than I did scouting the 332, and I didn't see it. Hopefully I'll be proven wrong. Me too. That's how I kind of end my video, and when I post the video, that's what's going to be my final thoughts is hope Kurtz can be a miracle worker on this one, and hopefully I'm just missing it. That'd be actually really nice, Megan. I'd be happy to be wrong on this one because Young is, as some people have said, one of the more important draft picks for you in this entire draft. He sits as your de facto starter, zero tech from day one. And if he's not up to the task, you don't exactly have a lot of sitting in reserve that you can call upon to feel good about, that you know can hold and handle the line there. So we'll see on it, Megan. But I am going to get that video out here hopefully in the next couple days. We'll be back also on Sunday for a live stream over on the main channel. I will be back here next Thursday. We'll shoot for being right about 5 o'clock. I can't get the link in advance on the channel yet because I got to figure out how to do things through Streamlabs. So I'll try if I can find a method to do that to you guys. But just count on, put your notifications on, set your alarm clock, whatever it may be, for 5 o'clock Pacific Standard Time Thursday. We'll be going into our next show. I haven't decided on the content quite yet, but we will be going into some other items at that point in time. So until I'm back, thank you guys for all of your support here on the channel. Thank you for being the members, patrons, all you guys have done as far as also donations on top of that. It's been an amazing year from a growth standpoint, from a support standpoint. And as I assure all of you guys on this, what comes into this channel as far as this membership and stuff goes right back into it as far as my concentrations are on this channel 24/7. My head pops off the pillow. I'm looking to what I can do to kind of get content and get more out to you guys and just try to produce more and more. So that is the goal. You guys are helping me get there with that support. Thank you for the bottom of my heart for all you guys doing that respective things. And I am so sorry that it has taken this long to get some benefits or more benefits kind of out to you guys, but they will continue to expand. And I really, really, really do appreciate it. Well, until we talk next this Sunday, I hope you guys don't ever forget. I don't think I got to remind my members, but just in case I do, please do not ever forget. Go Hawks.